Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of books and reading and notebooks and writing to make life better and to feel better too. You'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how it can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebook invitations around particular themes, and you'll meet authors and special guests who'll help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, and I'm here with another episode on how reading and writing can make life better. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I want to make sure you know about something exciting that I'm doing this summer. I'm offering a 5-week writing circle, and that writing circle is focused on writing to heal from chronic pain. Now, if you know me, if you've listened to this podcast, I've been on a journey for quite some time to figure out my own chronic pain, and I have tried everything. Some of those things worked, some of those things didn't, but there's one thing recently that has helped more than anything else I have tried, and that is a specific form of journaling. I know some of you, if you are not consistent listeners of the podcast, might be thinking, how is journaling going to fix my chronic joint pain, my chronic migraines, my chronic anything? And that's what we're going to talk about in the course. There is so much science, so much research behind writing, journaling, notebooking as a way to regulate a dysregulated nervous system, which contributes to chronic pain. If you can tackle that nervous system by journaling, by notebooking, by regulating your emotions on the page, it can lessen or even completely eradicate the chronic pain that you feel. And I'm telling you from experience that it's working. It's working so much that I have started an additional training so that I can become certified, so to speak, in teaching this very specific kind of expressive writing. And this writing circle came out of that experience. I want to share, to practice, to try out what I'm learning with a group of other people who want to learn it too. And that's what this writing circle is. It's a 5-week session where I give you a little bit of science behind why we're doing this work. We write together, sometimes from prompts, sometimes free writing. There will be movement, there will be book lists, of course, all of the things that I love put together in a beautiful 5-week session. Now, I'm limiting this session to only 12 participants so that we can truly join and form a small group community together. And there are less than half of those spots left. So if you think this is something for you, I highly recommend you click on the link in the show notes, or you head to alitlife.substack.com and read all about the 5-week circle there and click the link to join. Okay, now that exciting news aside, we are going to keep talking about writing today. We're going to talk about a specific kind of writing, and it's something that I haven't really talked about on the podcast yet. It addresses a concern that many of you come to me with, and I think it's the perfect season to get started in doing this kind of writing. Now, what is this kind of writing? It's tiny writing. Tiny writing. Maybe you call it micro writing, small writing. But the idea is that tiny writing is writing that you do in a tiny pocket of time, perhaps even in a tiny notebook, but that only consists of a tiny sentence. Now, the number one question I get about writing on this podcast is, how do I find the time to write? I want to write, I want to notebook, I want to journal, but I just don't have the time. Or what follows, and I don't know what to write about. And I'm so afraid of that big page and wasting it or getting it wrong. Tiny writing takes all of those concerns and hucks them out the window because it is saying in tiny writing, we only want one sentence a day. We only want one tiny little writing fragment in our day that can eventually, of course, accumulate over time. And it's perfect for summer. We are usually operating a little bit more slowly. We are trying to savor the wonderful weather, maybe the time home with our kids, at least on a slower summer schedule. It's a perfect time to pick up a notebook and just start being present on the page. We can be present for one sentence. And this kind of tiny writing is different than so-called air quotes regular writing. I want you to think of tiny writing as this tiny, small, low pressure, low stakes way to put pen to paper to, yes, support a writing life, but more importantly, support your well-being, support your presence, support your joy, right? This is not about putting something on the page for perfection. This is not about putting something on the page for productivity. And it's not even about putting something on the page that someone else might see. It's a teeny tiny writing practice that is just for you. And the whole idea is to only write one sentence a day so that you can leave all of those difficult frustrations behind of not knowing what to write or being afraid of messing it up or not having enough time. We all have enough time for one sentence. And I'm going to give you 10 ways in a little bit that you can pick which sentences are right for you. Now, my favorite kind of tiny writing is something that I started 4 years ago. It's connected to my favorite journal, and that is my 5-year journal. It's a small, chunky, colorful journal that's titled One Line a Day, a 5-year memory notebook. And it is my most treasured collection of beautiful papers. When I looked at this notebook, I almost didn't start it. So about 4 years ago, I saw this idea. I think it was probably something I saw on social media, and I thought, oh, that would have been so great to have back then. That would have been great to do when I was a kid, and I want to look back at my life at that time. That would have been great to do when the kids were little, and I wanted to save all of those precious moments. That would have been great back, fill in the blank. I really felt it was too late. Like my kids were teenagers. I was older. What good would a 5-year-old journal be when they were getting ready to leave and go off to college? And I almost didn't start it. And I am so glad that for whatever reason, I just decided it wasn't too late. And even though there weren't all of these wonderful moments from their childhood that I could have captured, it might be a good idea to purposefully look for the good, wonderful moments in their teenage lives as they were getting ready to go out the door, because that can be a complicated, trying time. And a 5-year notebook says, what is one good thing from the day that you want to hold on to? Whether it's something big like a birthday, a graduation, a milestone, or something small like the dessert you all enjoyed or the laugh you had around the kitchen table. A 5-year journal says every sentence matters. And in fact, that one sentence might be the most important thing you write that day or ever. Because now I have almost 4 years worth of sentences. And when I look at these, I can open up and see on any given day when we went to Martha's for ice cream over the summer and what flavor my son finally tried. Salted caramel, by the way. I could look at a day and see when my other son played sports with his friends out in the front yard, and I loved listening to the sounds of that float through the window. On another given day, I can see where I walked with my daughter when we take one of our daily walks and what's something that we laughed about. These are things that I would never, ever remember if it weren't for this 5-year journal and flipping through the pages. One sentence a day matters. And of course, that one sentence a day could turn into more sentences, but the idea is that that one little thing could be most important. A. Milne has this beautiful quote: "Sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart. And sometimes those tiny sentences can make up the most joyful writing practice." So that's what I want to dive into today. I want to talk about ways that you can bring tiny writing into your life. So again, tiny writing is this tiny, short, low stakes kind of writing practice. Okay, think phrases, think one sentences, think quick haikus or 6-word stories, right? Think tiny pieces of writing where the focus isn't on producing something. It is just about being present, about connecting to your life and feeling gratitude, joy, happiness. It's writing for well-being. Of course, that's what we talk about here on the podcast. So it's about being present. It's about not putting any pressure on yourself other than to write one single sentence. It's about helping you build clarity and check in with yourself. It's about helping you track the joys. And it's about feeling accomplished that you are putting something on the page. Tiny writing, I feel, is everything. It's just the bedrock of a beautiful life as well as a writing life. So when you think about tiny writing, in your mind, in your life right now, did something already come to mind of something you could do in a tiny way in your own life, right? Not tiny to-do lists, right? Not tiny productivity hacks, but tiny writing. I want to give you 10 ways that you could start a tiny writing practice. We're talking one sentence a day only on purpose to give you all of the benefits that come from putting pencil to paper, and perhaps to get you reignited, reacquainted, resparked in relation to your writing life. So the first thing that I want you to try, of course, I just talked about it, is the 5-year journal. Try writing down one sentence a day that captures something good that you want to hold on to. Whether you do that in an actual formatted 5-year journal or a notebook page, or even opening up your calendar, your agenda, your planner, and writing the sentence there, writing one sentence a day of something good for your life that you want to hold on to and remember later is definitely my most favorite form of tiny writing that can have such a beautiful cumulative effect on your health, your well-being, and the satisfaction that you find in your life. The second form of tiny writing that I absolutely love is writing down a beautiful quote a day. That could be from social media. It could be browsing on the internet. It could be from a book that you've read or just something that you've heard and you hold on to. Embodying the quote by thinking it in your head, saying it out loud, and writing it down helps it sink in. If you don't know about Lisa Funk, I want you to go Google her. Lisa has this beautiful podcast on creativity, and she practices what she calls mindful lettering, where her whole concept, her whole being just embraces this idea of writing down something good, something beautiful in a beautiful, creative way as a mindfulness tool. You don't have to get fancy like Lisa does, although I would argue that Lisa shows you how to do that easily and beautifully. But just writing down one good quote a day, whether it's to kick off your morning or end your night, could be just the thing you need to switch your mindset into one of positivity. Now, another sentence a day idea is to write a quick note to self. A quick note to self. That could be about something from the day that you want to hold on to in 5-year journal style, or it could be a quick note to self congratulating yourself on something. It could be a quick note to self to remember what you want to bring into the next day. It could be a quick note to self of something that you've learned. But a quick note to yourself, about the world around you, could be a way to help you stop, think, and get some clarity. Now, you might also, in idea number 4, just write down a feeling of the day. How are you feeling today? That could be one word written on the page. And it might not seem like that could do anything, but checking in daily, asking yourself how you feel, coming up with a word to describe that feeling and jotting it down and just sitting with it for a minute, that kind of awareness is so important. If you haven't read Brett Larkin's Yoga Life, I highly recommend it. She talks about how this yoga of awareness, just this idea that you check in with yourself every day and then act accordingly, can literally transform your life. Starting with this, with one word written down in your calendar, one sentence written down about how you're feeling, that could really, really be a game changer. Now, another idea is to create an affirmation a day. You might look these up. If you Googled positive affirmations to start your day, you're going to get hundreds. If you took out one of my favorite books, it's always on my desk. It's Louise Hay's Heal Your Life. You could look at something that's bothering you, a feeling that you have, a body part that's aching, and she will give you a corresponding affirmation to help you feel better from whatever that is. That is my favorite book of affirmations. Or you could just make up a positive sentence in your mind and write it down for the day. It's related to a quote a day, but it's more specific, it's more personal, and it's more focused on manifesting the kind of feeling that you want to have. Now, another thing you might do is to create a little love note to someone else. Now, I know this is kind of breaking my rules that this tiny writing is about process, not product. It's about you and not anyone else. But hear me out. This could go either way. When you write a note to self, you are thinking inward, you are reflecting. When you write a quick note to someone else, you are living in a state of gratitude. Now, you don't have to send this note, but you could, right? You could let someone know. It could be a quick line in an email. It could be a quick text to someone. It could just be a line in your notebook or in your planner of something you're appreciative for, directed to someone or something else. A couple of years ago, I did a slice of life challenge with the 2 writing teachers, and I pledged that every day that month, I would write a letter of gratitude, a note of gratitude to someone or something or some concept in my life each day. And let me tell you, that was a transformative process. By the end of the month, you start looking for those pieces of goodness and you find them, right? You find what you're looking for. So you could write a love note to someone or something else. And if you choose to send it, wonderful. If you don't, that's okay too. You're just cultivating that kind of attitude inside yourself, and you can't help but radiate that out. Now, related, you might start a gratitude list, just one sentence a day of something that you are grateful for. I bet that if you do one thing, you will probably come up with more, but all you need to do is just start with one piece of gratitude. The next thing you might try is also a list. You know, I love listicles, and that's a proof list. If you haven't listened to last week's episode yet, then I highly recommend you do, because I talk about what a proof list is and where it came from. But as a quick review, a proof list is something that you write down every night that gives you evidence that you're moving in a direction you want to move in. So you could start with one sentence a day, proving, documenting, affirming something that you did for the day that is moving you closer to the person you want to be. Maybe you drank the amount of ounces of water that you wanted to drink that day. Write that down. Maybe you got up early and you wrote 100 words on a book or a novel or a piece of writing that you've been working on. Write that down. Maybe you didn't lose your temper when something happened with your kids, and that's proof that you're moving toward a more calmer direction. So you could write one sentence a day that celebrates you and the kind of person that you are becoming. Now, technically, I could say that you could write any list. You could write a joy list, one joy a day. You could write anything really in list form. So if this listicle idea appeals to you, you could just start a really great list and add one thing to that list every single day. Now, if you want to get a little more creative, I have two last options for you. One is a 6-word memoir. So we've talked about writing sentences from your day in a 5-year journal, or writing a sentence of gratitude, a sentence of joy. But if you want to get creative, write a 6-word memoir, write a 6-word story. And if you need some inspiration, just Google 6-word story. It is the most fun, creative act. Now, it definitely makes you think more, but I would say if you want a little bit of an extra challenge, you want to have that extra layer of creativity, a 6-word story from your day could work for you. Or the final example I have for today, maybe you write a haiku. I love poetry. I used to write it as a kid all of the time. I love reading it as an adult. And a listener who writes haikus for every single one of the people who subscribe to her Substack has really turned me on to not writing, actually, that's a lie, reading more haikus. I don't think I'm ready to try writing a haiku yet. But Lori Tom, if you don't know her, go on to Substack, take a look. She writes beautiful haikus, and I just loved getting a personalized one in my email. She writes pretty much a haiku a day, if not more. And that one piece of creative writing is really sustaining and nourishing to her. Now, those are 10 ideas that I gave you to start a tiny writing practice, but you might be thinking of something else, and that's great. I want you to start wherever you feel like starting. As long as you just pick up your pencil, your pen, and you put one sentence a day down, that's all you need. Maybe it's in a notebook. Maybe it's in a tiny notebook. Maybe it's on a sticky note, and those sticky notes stack up in a pile. Maybe it's on an index card, and you pop them into one of those cool index card holders that you can just flip through as your stack gets wider. Or maybe you're just writing it in your calendar, in your planner, in your agenda, in a Google Doc. It doesn't matter where. But one sentence a day is all it takes to start filling your cup from the inside through a tiny writing practice. And yes, when you get hooked on the one sentence a day, I promise you it is the gateway action to more writing. Because if you can write one sentence a day and get into that beautiful habit, then I know you can start keeping that writing going. And by experimenting with these different kinds of tiny writing, you might find what your actual, more longer writing life might want next. Now, I, of course, would love to know what you think of this idea of tiny writing, what you think of when you think of your own tiny writing practice. So you can find me at alitlife.com in the show notes for this episode and leave a comment. Head online, go to your favorite platform, find me at Affinito Lit, or click that little button in your podcast player so that you can leave me an audio message. I would love to hear from you about what you think your tiny writing practice is or could be. And if you have any other suggestions, we can keep adding to them and I can save them perhaps for a future episode and we can collect all sorts of different tiny writing opportunities that could launch us into a beautiful writing life full of connection and presence and joy. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, everyone. Go out there, grab a piece of paper, grab a pencil, and get started with this 1 sentence a day habit. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned on the episode in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Substack community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and much more. It's only $5 a month, and you'll get instant access to all of the previous content, too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish communities too. Thanks for listening.